Hello, my name is Elianna Rose. Today we will be doing a quilling class. Quilling is the art of making pictures from paper strips. For instance, we will be making this flower, but you can also make other pictures like this peacock or various other things. Like you can do it on paper by gluing the different pieces, or you can do it just in hand like this. If you have a kit, you will have a thing of Elmer's glue, some toothpicks, and a bag labeled practice. So these are the strips we will use first to practice, and the actual strips of paper we will use to make the flower. If you are doing this at home and you want to make your own paper strips, they are about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch thick or wide. But if you're doing this professionally, you can get as small as 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so the first thing we will be doing today is practicing some different strips. So we will be making an open coil, a loose coil, and a tight coil. These are the simple basic coils. Then we'll learn how to change that into a teardrop and an eye. And then lastly, we'll be making scrolls, which are really simple to make. So first off, we'll start with the open coil. I will be using a strip of black paper just to color code it. So the first thing you want to do is kind of pinch off the end a little bit, so that way you have a starting point to roll. So then you fold it up and then you start rolling it. You can roll it tight or loose for the open coil. It doesn't really matter. If you roll it tighter, it will be smaller. And if you roll it looser, it will be bigger. If you want, you can kind of pinch it and then go around to keep it even. It can take a little bit of practice, but once you get the hang of it, then it becomes easier. So then after that, you just let it go and you have an open coil. Next we'll do a loose coil, which is pretty similar, except now we bring in the glue, which is just Elmer's glue. So same process as before, just pinch it off, start rolling. Make sure you don't roll tightly, just keep it loose. Oops. Alright, and then you let it loose, but you still hold it on the end so it doesn't completely unroll. And this is where we take the glue and your toothpick and put a little bit of glue on the end. And then you take the end piece and you put just a dab. And then you, whoops, and it's unrolling. Put it on here and you hold it for about 5 seconds to let the glue set. And then you have a loose coil. And you can, if you make that a little bit tighter, it'll be a bit more coiled, like these ones. And now we'll do the tight coil. So this one can be a little tricky because you have to keep even tension the entire time. So for this one, just try wrapping it as tightly as you can in between your thumb and forefinger. Alright, for this one, you don't let it loose. You just hold it on the end, where the end is. And then you take a little bit of dab, and put the glue on the end, and then press it there and hold it for about 5 seconds. And then you have a tight coil. Next we'll move on to do the teardrop, which is just an alteration of a medium loose coil. So first thing you do is roll up your coil. And if you rolled it too tight and you want it to be a little bit looser, just kind of gently let it go a bit. And the looser it is, the larger your teardrop will be. And then you take the glue and you glue the coil shut, and then hold that for about 5 seconds. Then you pinch off one end, so that way you have a teardrop. Basically the same for your eye. Just roll it up. If rolling the small strips of paper is too difficult for you, I would advise trying a larger width of paper. Now you take both sides and then you pinch them off at the same time, and then you should have a eye. Alright, next we'll be doing the V-scrolls. So for these ones, you take your strip of paper and you fold it in half so your ends meet up. And then make sure you make a crease at the end. Then you unfold it. So first we'll be making a heart scroll. So for this one, you roll both sides inwards. So you start just like you would with the coil, rolling inwards. And you want to try and get it to the same points on both sides. That's what the middle crease is for. That way your heart will look symmetrical. If you want it to look asymmetrical, like be different on both sides, you could get more of a vine look instead of a heart look, which could be what you want. So then you just let it loose, so you have half. And then I stopped about here with my coil, so I will do that on the other side. Rolling inward again. And you have a heart. If you want, you can take a little bit of glue and put it in the middle of the heart to keep it together. Or you can just leave it loose, like in this case, and it should stay pretty close together if it's rolled a bit more tightly. Next is the V-scroll. So for that one, you take it, same process as before, fold it in half. But now you're rolling the opposite way. So you roll outwards instead of inwards. And again, try to get it to the same point on both sides. You can see I didn't quite get it in this case, so you can just loosen it up and move it a bit if you want it to be more even. If you want, you can take a little bit of glue and glue the bottom together if you want it to be tighter, or you can just leave it open. Next we will move on to making our actual flower. Okay, so first of all, we will be making our flower. So we'll be making the middle coil first, and then we'll make the petals, and then we'll make the leaves. So this is just a regular tight, or, well, you can do a loose coil, but that will make the middle of your flower bigger. So if you want a large middle, then you can make a looser coil. I will be making about a mid tightness coil, so that way you can see the in-between. So just a regular coil as we practiced. So just sort of loose, and we take a bit of glue, and at the end, and glue that, and then we have the middle of our flower. Next we will be doing the petals, which are just teardrops, like we practiced with the others before. So that is making a coil, and then putting a little bit of glue and remembering to hold it, otherwise it'll not stay. And then pinching off one of the ends. So now you need to make 6 teardrops, so that way we can have them all around the flower. And we want to try and get all the teardrops about the same size, so that way they will look like symmetrical all the way around, which can be a bit tricky at first. Just try and get your coils all the same size, and then they should end up about the same size for the teardrop shape. As you can see, they're not quite even, but they're close. Alright, so I went ahead and I made 6 petals or teardrops. Now we will go ahead and make the leaves, which are actually heart scrolls. So like we practiced, we fold it in half with our green paper and then roll inwards. And try and roll them tightly if you want them to coil together more. If you want them to like be a bit more looser and coil further out, then don't coil it as tight. And remember, try and get it to the same spot on both sides, so that way you have an even leaf, unless you want to try for a different effect. Alright, for the leaves, I found it's helpful to take a little bit of glue and glue the middles together, so that way the flower stays pretty close knit and doesn't like go out too much on you. So then you need to make 6 more of these heart scrolls. Oops. Well, that one got a little uneven, but you can just fold it and roll it till you got it about even. You want to try and make the leaves about even, so that way they'll fit on your flower petals all the same way. But if they're a little bit uneven, it'll probably look fine. Just make sure you fit them all together. Okay, so I have made the 6 hearts, and now we will assemble our flower. So if you want, you can do this on paper. So I will give an example. You can just take a coil, this is a different coil from a practice, and then lightly dip it in the glue. This can be pretty tricky, so if you have tweezers, very helpful, otherwise you get it on your fingers and it gets stuck. So you go like that, and I should have gotten tweezers. I'm going to try again with a tighter coil. This trick works better with tighter coils. So just get a little bit on the back and then you glue it on your paper. Just set it there and it'll stay. And then you could also just like take a paintbrush and lightly put it on the bottom. And then you can arrange it like that. So then you can do that with your flower, or you can take your middle and then your petals, and then actually glue the petals themselves onto the middle. So just use little dabs of glue for this. So then you just put it on like that. And for this technique, you need to hold it. And then you arrange your petals the same way all the way around, trying to get them kind of even. If you make your coils tighter, like I did in my previous example, they will fit together pretty closely. If you make some of them loose and some of them tight, you might have some spaces, like in this example, which is okay because that looks kind of cool too. And then let that dry before moving on to the leaves. Okay, so now we have our 6 hearts, and I have glued them all together, like in between, so they won't fall apart. And we will now put them on our flower as leaves. So this part is a little bit trickier with the glue. We need to take and put some dab of glue on the end and on the sides, so that way it will stay in the flower. Make sure not to use too much glue, otherwise it'll like squirt out the sides and not look very nice. So see how it's glued? And before you glue, it's usually wise to arrange them first, like put them all together and see how they fit, because sometimes there's some pieces that fit better in some spots than others. So you can get an overall nicer looking flower if you plan it out first. And now you have a beautiful quilled flower. If you want to do more with quilling, there are some tools that you can get that make it easier to start off the rolling and the process quicker. But it is also, you're also able to just use your hands, and if you get good enough at it, you can sell your art professionally. But other than that, it's just a fun and relaxing activity to do.